The first thing he felt was warmth. The second was fingers. Long, delicate, far too many fingers, skimming across his chest, arms, shoulders. Not just touching. Feeling. Like they were reading him. His eyes shot open. Two alien women crouched over him, their strange bioluminescent skin pulsing in colors he couldn't decipher. They weren't looking at him. No pupils, no irises. Instead, their long fingers traced every inch of his body with disturbing precision. "Oh!" One of them inhaled sharply, her fingers hovering over his stomach. "It's impossible." The other let out a tiny gasp, her fingers freezing against his biceps. "I feel it too. The density, the structure." The first one swallowed. "It's so firm." The second whispered, breathless, "Every inch of him." His brain short-circuited. "What the hell are you two doing?" The sisters reeled back, their glowing skin pulsing a sharp red. Shock? Embarrassment? "You can talk?" the first sister blurted. "Yeah, and I'd like to know why you're groping me." The second sister hesitated, then pressed two fingers against his chest again. Her entire body trembled. "Oh no," she murmured. "It wasn't a hallucination. He really is unnatural." The first sister hesitated, then placed her own palm against his shoulder. He swore he felt her shudder. "He's not just unnatural," she whispered. "He's a biological marvel." The human blinked. "You're making it sound like I have 3 dicks or something." Neither of them laughed. Instead, they exchanged serious glances. "We need to take him back to the dwelling," the first one said. "For study." The second agreed. He sat up, which only made both of them gasp. "This structure," the first sister whispered. "No sagging, no loose composition. His body defies all natural laws of our kind." The human ran a hand down his very normal abs. "Lady, I just do push-ups." The second sister made a choked noise. "Push-ups?" The first pressed both hands to his pecs this time, and her fingers convulsed like she'd just touched something blasphemous. "Sweet ancestors' mercy," she trembled. "Okay, that's enough." He grabbed their wandering hands and pulled them away. "First of all, boundaries. Second, who the hell are you?" The second sister flushed brighter, their glow dimming into a more controlled pulse. "I am Vari," she said. "This is my sister Shale." Shale straightened, though her fingers twitched, like she wanted to feel him again. "We are Thalary. Our species perceives the world through physical sensation. We do not see the way you do. We feel every microscopic detail of our surroundings." Vari nodded, glancing at his arm again with thinly veiled yearning. "And you, human, are unnaturally structured." He rubbed his face. "So let me get this straight. You two found me unconscious in the wreckage of my ship, decided to cop a feel, and now you're saying I'm, what, some kind of alien muscle freak?" Shale's brow furrowed. "We would never use such crude terminology." Vari hummed. "But yes, that is precisely what we are saying." He let out a slow, deep sigh. "Well, that's fantastic. I'm stranded, borderline naked, and apparently too firm for comfort." Shale's eyes widened. "Oh, no. Your level of firmness is deeply comfortable." Vari nodded enthusiastically. "Almost dangerously so." His brain buffered. "Are you saying my body is a health hazard?" Shale hesitated. "More like a biological paradox." Vari pressed her palm against his chest again, only for him to grab her wrist mid-motion. "That's it. No more random touching." She pouted. His stomach growled. Both sisters perked up. "Oh," Shale breathed. "He requires sustenance." "We will feed him," Vari declared. The human perked up too. "Yeah, feeding sounds great." They helped him to his feet. Well, mostly just kept touching him unnecessarily in the process. Valerie's hands were weird. Slightly longer fingers, more joints, but scarily dexterous, and far too eager. By the time they led him to their dwelling, he was 99% sure they were still sneaking in feels every few steps. Then came the food. "This is safe to eat, right?" he asked, eyeing the glistening purple slab of meat on the plate. Vari and Shale both watched him intensely. "It is a rare delicacy," Shale murmured. "You should eat it slowly." "Very slowly," Vari agreed. His stomach rumbled louder. He grabbed a chunk of alien meat and bit down. Silence. Then Vari leaned forward. "So?" he chewed. Thought about it. "Tastes like chicken." Shale frowned. "What is chicken?" He waved her off, swallowing. "Never mind." "You got any drinks?" Vari handed him a bowl of clear liquid. "It enhances the body's internal temperature," she said smoothly. Shale sighed wistfully. "I'd love to feel it coursing through me." He paused mid-sip. Shale flushed again. "I meant, I'd love to see how it interacts with your foreign physiology." Vari nudged her. "You did not mean that." Shale glared. "I am trying to be professional." The human drained the cup anyway, setting it down with a sigh. "All right. Food, drink. What's next? Are you two gonna scan me with alien tech or just keep feeling me up?" Vari and Shale exchanged glances. "We do not need technology," Shale said slowly. Vari nodded. "We will assess your structure through continued physical study." The human squinted. "You're just looking for an excuse to grope me." Silence. Then Shale coughed. "Scientific groping." Vari cleared her throat. "It is a valid method of study." The human ran a hand down his face. "I feel like I've been kidnapped by a pair of blind, horny aliens." Vari perked up. "We are not blind." Shale smiled sweetly. "And we prefer highly inquisitive over horny." The human leaned back, exasperated. "This is gonna be a long stay, isn't it?" Shale and Vari both grinned. "We certainly hope so." The moment he tried to sleep, he knew it wasn't going to be easy. The so-called bed they gave him was too soft, like it melted under his weight, conforming to every contour of his body. It should have been comfortable. It wasn't. It felt like he was sinking into something alive. Vari and Shale hovered nearby, whispering, "His weight distribution is fascinating. The density, the way he sinks, I can feel it all. Should we adjust the firmness?" He cracked an eye open. "I swear to God, if you start adjusting the bed while I'm in it." Shale bit her lip. "But wouldn't you rather sleep in something perfectly molded to your body?" Vari tilted her head. "Wouldn't you prefer our hands? We can manually adjust." "Absolutely not." They pouted. He groaned and flopped back, trying to ignore the way they still watched him. "This is the weirdest rescue of my life." Shale crossed her arms. "We are merely ensuring your maximum comfort." Vari nodded. "It is part of the study. You two don't need to study me anymore." Silence. Then Shale murmured, "I can still feel the composition of your chest from earlier." Vari shuddered. "It lingers." His eye twitched. "Go to sleep." He rolled over and pulled what felt like a blanket over himself, desperately trying to ignore the whispered debates about his muscle structure. He barely drifted off before he woke up to movement, warm fingers trailing over his back. He froze. A breathless murmur. "How is this possible?" Another hand, lingering too long. "There's no weakness. Not even here." He turned his head just enough to see them kneeling beside him, their long fingers skimming his back like they were mapping out a discovery. "You two have 3 seconds to explain why you're feeling me up in my sleep." Shale stiffened. "We weren't." "You were." Vari sighed, unapologetic. "You are so incredibly firm that it is physically impossible for us to ignore." Shale nodded. "It's hypnotic." He sat up. It's intrusive. Shale bit her lip. But fascinating. Vari's fingers twitched. Can we touch you just a little more? No. Silence. Then Shale softly, what if it was an accident? He blinked. How the hell would it be an accident? Vari straightened. If we say tripped. Shale nodded. Or fell. And our hands happened to land on you. That wouldn't be our fault. His eye twitched violently. That's it. He threw off the blanket and stood up. I'm sleeping outside, they gasped. Shale grabbed his wrist instantly, her fingers tight but weirdly desperate. No, you can't. Vari lurched forward too. You won't survive. The temperatures. I'd rather freeze than wake up to alien fondling. Shale looked genuinely hurt. But your structure. Vari sighed. And it was such a pleasurable structure. His jaw clenched. You are not helping, Shale pouted. Will you at least let us watch? No. They exchanged looks. Then Shale exhaled deeply, looking genuinely conflicted. Fine. No more touching without permission. He stared. Just like that? She nodded solemnly. Yes. Vari hesitated. What if we ask for permission nicely? Shale brightened. Oh, that's a good idea. He grabbed the nearest pillow and screamed into it. Morning came with a problem. A very obvious problem. Vari and Shale were staring at him again. This time, their eyes were locked onto a single point. Lower. He yanked the blanket higher. You do not get to study that. Vari's head tilted. Is it involuntary? Shale's gaze remained fixed. Or a deliberate choice? He groaned and sat up, keeping the blanket firmly in place. Neither. It's normal. Vari's lips parted slightly. For humans? Shale's fingers twitched. All of them? He rubbed his face. Yes. A pause. Then Shale murmured, That is incredibly unfair. Vari nodded gravely. If we had this capability, society would collapse. Shale sighed. It might be worth it. He gritted his teeth. Can we change the subject? Vari blinked, then gestured at his torso. Your chest is firm even after sleeping. Shale nodded. Yes, shouldn't it soften? After hours of inactivity? His eye twitched. I don't just deflate overnight. Shale looked disappointed. Pity. Vari hummed. Perhaps we should test endurance levels? He stiffened. No. Shale blinked innocently. You misunderstand. We wouldn't do anything extreme. Vari nodded. Just simple resistance tests. Shale lifted a hand. A gentle push. Vari stepped closer. A light squeeze. His jaw clenched. I swear to God. Shale suddenly perked up. Ah, I know. A wrestling match. Vari's eyes gleamed. Brilliant. He stared. What? No. Shale clasped her hands. Oh, but we must. We need to test flexibility, responsiveness. Vari's smile turned sharp. And dominance. He blinked, then slowly said, I don't like how you said that last part. Shale ignored him. It's perfect. A simple test of physical superiority. Vari nodded. It would also allow for extended contact. He threw up a hand. No wrestling. They pouted. Shale sighed. Very well. Perhaps another method. Vari's fingers twitched. We should apply pressure in different ways. Shale's eyes widened. Yes. Perhaps a straddle? He choked. Shale's cheeks darkened. I mean, a seated endurance test. Vari bit her lip. What if we held him down? Shale nodded. And took turns measuring response? He buried his face in his hands. This is not science. Shale tilted her head. Would it help if we wore lab coats? He glared. Shale sighed dramatically. Fine, we'll be patient. Vari nodded solemnly. Yes. We'll restrain ourselves. A pause. Then Shale murmured, Unless, of course, you make the first move. Vari grinned. Yes. Then we would simply be reciprocating. He stood up and left the room. Immediately, the tension in the air was undeniable. It had been building ever since the first night. The lingering touches, the way they studied him, too closely. And now this. Vari and Shale stood before him, their expressions unreadable. Human, Vari murmured. We have made a decision. Shale nodded. It is time. His stomach dropped. Time for what? Shale took a step forward. To test everything. Vari's gaze flicked down his body. Every single detail. His throat went dry. You mean? Shale nodded. We must understand all aspects. Vari added. And we have debated long enough. He swallowed. I see. Shale's voice softened. Do you object? His brain was screaming. But his body? It had already betrayed him. Vari's lips curled. We'll take that as a no. Shale sighed in relief. Then let us begin. They reached for him. And chaos erupted. The door slammed open. A loud, guttural voice boomed. Hands off the human! He barely had time to react before a third alien entered the room. This one was bigger, broader, and very, very angry. Vari groaned. Not now, Veda. Shale rubbed her temples. You always ruin things. Veda pointed a finger. You two have had more than enough time to conduct scientific research on him. Her gaze snapped to him. I challenge you. He blinked. Wait, what? Shale groaned. Not this again. Vari scowled. Veda, this isn't a competition. Veda's nostrils flared. Like hell it isn't. You're hogging him. He stared. Veda's arms crossed. If you two get to measure his firmness, then so do I. Shale sighed. Veda. Vari's eye twitched. We warned you about interfering. Veda scoffed. Oh, please. You two are soft. Vari and Shale stiffened. A dangerous silence filled the room. Shale's smile was too sweet. Soft? Vari's gaze darkened. You think we haven't gone far enough? Veda smirked. I think you lack commitment. Shale's fingers curled. Vari exhaled slowly. Then, as one, they turned to him. Shale's eyes gleamed. Human, we have a new test. Vari's smile was sharp. It involves comparative endurance. His stomach sank. Veda's smirk widened. Oh, this'll be fun. He had never felt more like a science experiment. Or a prized possession. Or... Shale leaned in. Try to keep up. Vari's hands curled. Don't hold back. Veda cracked her knuckles. Let's see what you're really made of. He was so screwed.